When Luis Enrique senses that a major European game is approaching, he becomes a different kind of manager. He becomes a supervillain, crushing even his toughest opponents and not afraid to tell his biggest stars the harsh truth to their faces. You need big balls to tell Mbappe that he doesn't help his teammates enough with defending. Remember when everyone was tipping Liverpool to win the Champions League? Well, he just ate them up with unbelievable dominance. And it wasn't just them. The best part? He was dubbed finished after failing at the 2022 World Cup. Around 6 months later, he was appointed at PSG and turned the French giants into their best version ever. This is the story of the people and clubs who learned their lessons after doubting and criticizing a manager who is making history. These are the victims of Luis Enrique. By the way, have you ever seen a player or manager who is super calm off the pitch, but becomes a super villain when he's on it? Well, you couldn't find a better example than that of Lucho. Enrique has always had a very calm personality, as was evident at the beginning of his playing career. After swapping Real Madrid for Barcelona in 1996 for rarely being appreciated by the Madrid supporters, he entered his villain arc era. If Luis Figo is Barcelona's biggest enemy of all time, for Real Madrid fans, this is surely Luis Enrique, the ultimate traitor. And, well, since that day, Enrique has never been the same. He's the kind of guy who doesn't think twice before expressing himself freely in front of the media. He says whatever he wants to whoever he wants, whenever he has a reason to do so. After eliminating Arsenal, he uttered some words that will surely go down in history.
You've knocked out all the Premier League opposition in this competition.
The League of Farmers, no? We are the League of Farmers.
On top of that, given all the circumstances at PSG, the billions invested, the high expectations, the dozens of superstars who have come and gone, and every time ending up as losers, to achieve all that in less than 2 years after being appointed is some crazy work by Luis Enrique. After dramatically failing in his first year and reaching the semi-finals with a massive comeback against Barcelona, only to be knocked out by Borussia Dortmund, it's clear that fate was definitely not on his side. Mbappe, literally their biggest talisman, superstar, game-changer, call it whatever you want, departed for Real Madrid and left a gaping hole in attack. Or at least, that's what we all thought. But Enrique's plan worked brilliantly. To understand how exactly he did it, we need to take a look at his opponents in the Champions League. If you think fate wasn't fair to Lucho and PSG, just look at their opponents in the group phase: Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Manchester City, the Dutch champions PSV, and Girona, who finished third in La Liga last season. According to Opta, the draw was actually the most difficult of all 32 teams in the competition. And to make matters worse, all of the aforementioned teams except Girona made it to the knockout stages. The first game of the season was against the Spanish team that caused such a sensation in the 2023-24 season. PSG attacked fearlessly, perhaps sensing that they needed to win against lower competitive teams. The 3 points were essential for the match against Girona. Miss after miss after miss, and when it looked as if they were going to fail, Nuno Mendes' cross from a tight angle in the 90th minute resulted in an error by Paulo Gazzaniga, earning PSG the 3 points. At the time, nobody knew it, but if PSG hadn't won against Girona, they would have been eliminated from the knockout stages. The next victim? Well, it came 3 months later. After beating Girona, PSG went on to lose 3 of their next 4 games. They were a complete mess against Arsenal, made an unacceptable draw against PSV, lost narrowly to Atletico Madrid, and were heavily dominated by Bayern Munich. 4 points from their first 5 games, they wouldn't have even qualified for the top 24, the fans said. And they were right. After match day 5, PSG were nowhere near the top 24, let alone the top 8, which would have guaranteed them a place in the knockout stages. But then came Enrique's brilliant idea, his special idea. PSG was struggling in attack with their starting number 9s, Randal Kolo Muani and Gonzalo Ramos. So Lucho opted for a change. He started deploying Dembele in that position, but his role was different to that of a traditional striker. His responsibilities were to drag back, take the ball, and distribute it forward. And with Dembele having that pace, proactively and positioning in his game, this tactical tweak didn't just do wonders to PSG, it'll be the main reason for an eventual European treble. By the end of 2024, no one considered PSG to be a team with a chance of winning the Champions League. Their defense was leaky, their attack impotent, and their midfield wasn't working as expected. But there was a reason behind all that. João Neves needed time to settle in. Willian Pacho wasn't even the starting centre-back. As for the attack, PSG were fielding a different trio each game. And suddenly, as if by magic, everything clicked. Luis Enrique had figured out the perfect system. Marquinhos and Pacho were in defense, with the speedy Nuno Mendes and Achraf Hakimi on the flanks, Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz and João Neves in midfield, and Dembele, Richard Havertz and Barcola or Desiree Doué in attack. If you're wondering which game started it all, it was probably the Super Cup victory over Monaco in their first game of 2025. With some minor exceptions, PSG started with exactly those 11 players. Of course, Havertz was still at Napoli at the time, while Ruiz was swapped for Warren Zaire-Emery. Everything else followed the well-established formation. As for the Champions League, the comeback began with an away win against Salzburg on the 10th of December, with PSG winning 3-0. With 7 points from 6 games, the situation looked slightly better, but they were still outside the top 24 and needed to win their remaining 2 games to stand any chance of qualifying for the playoffs. However, the first of those matches was against Man City. The citizens were 2-0 up after 53 minutes. PSG's dream was shattered. They would be on the losing side again. After yet another high-spending summer, PSG were destined to fail again. Now, let me tell you a quick story about Luis Enrique. January 2015. After being appointed Barcelona manager the previous summer, his first few months were inconsistent. They were competing with Real Madrid for the La Liga title, but lost the first El Clasico of the season 3-1. Following a series of poor results, including a shocking 1-0 defeat to Real Sociedad in January 2015, Enrique was on the brink of being sacked. To make matters worse, Lucho had controversially benched both Messi and Neymar that day, reportedly as part of an ongoing power struggle behind the scenes. The players were unhappy, especially Messi, who allegedly skipped training shortly afterwards. Rumors circulated that Messi had given the club an ultimatum: either Enrique goes or I do. Club president Josep Bartomeu was under pressure and even considering sacking Enrique mid-season. However, instead of pulling the trigger, he held firm, and that decision changed everything. Barca went on a historic run. Messi, Neymar and Suarez clicked into devastating form. Enrique adapted his approach, giving his star players more freedom, and the team became unstoppable. By June, Barcelona had won everything: La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the Champions League. They won the final against the best Italian side at the time, who were also the Serie A champions. Do you see the similarities? Luis Enrique is incredibly close to achieving that again, with some mad instances of fate repeating itself. And probably somewhere around the midway point of the second half against Manchester City, he thought, let's do this again. I can't fail just now. Until the end of the match, PSG delivered one of their most impressive performances, scoring 4 past City and making them their next victims. They were only just a step away from the playoffs. After winning against Stuttgart and scoring 10 goals against Brest in the playoffs, PSG were in a completely different stratosphere. Their attacking power was fascinating. In their last 5 Champions League games alone, the Parisians scored 21 goals, more than 5 per game on average. Next up were Liverpool. Put simply, it was an encounter entirely dominated by PSG. Liverpool had some chances, mainly in the first half of the second leg, but Enrique's masterclass and confidence meant PSG were never ruled out. Even though they qualified on penalties, PSG never looked like being eliminated. In those 210 minutes of regular and extra time, there were probably no more than 30 in which Liverpool dominated. Everything else was PSG. The only reason Liverpool avoided humiliation was probably Alisson's brilliant goalkeeping. Pep Guardiola, Arne Slot, whose scout would be next, Unai Emery and Aston Villa. On paper, this looked like the easiest opponent for PSG, but practically it wasn't. After going 2-0 up in the second leg and seemingly slowing down, Aston Villa put PSG under pressure and were actually astonishingly close to taking the game into extra time. Strong defending from PSG and Donnarumma's brilliance in goal in the last 20 minutes did the job for Luis Enrique. Then came the next big victim, number 4, Mikel Arteta. The situation against Arsenal was tricky, or at least that was the expectation. After an early goal from Dembele at the Emirates, PSG closed all the gaps and defended as a unit. But they weren't doing it out of desperation, they were doing it with a purpose. The objective for the first leg was clear: go there and win the game so that we can have an advantage in Paris, and Lucho's boys implemented the plan down to perfection. Then, in the second leg, when everyone expected Arsenal to start strongly, PSG won again. Apart from one huge save by Donnarumma from an Odegaard shot, Arsenal didn't create any other chances. Then, in the 27th and 72nd minutes, Fabian Ruiz and Hakimi sealed the victory. PSG made it all the way to Munich in their quest for their first major European trophy. Let me tell you a secret: every time the final has been played in Munich, a new team has been crowned champion. Nottingham Forest in 1979, Olympique Marseille in 1993, Borussia Dortmund in 1997, and Chelsea in 2012. On the 31st of May, only one of the finalists has never won it, and that is PSG. Look, this game against Inter Milan is a battle of legacies and histories. Perhaps no one has higher stakes than Enrique. First Champions League for PSG and second treble for him. The ultimate legacy on the line. The stakes have never been higher than that. But one thing is for sure: no matter the final result, Luis Enrique has certainly done his best to make Inter Milan his next victim. So, what's your take? Who will come out victorious on Saturday? Share with us in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, or just go straight to our next video, in which we discussed why Carlo Ancelotti is the perfect pick for the Brazilian national team. Catch you there.